Just 2 days before the Friday deadline, Senate leaders have agreed on a bill to keep the government from shutting down during the holidays. Senators are expected to vote later today on legislation that would fund the government through February the 8th. The House is likely going to vote on the bill, we hope, by the end of the week. They kind of have to. Democrats say they will support the short-term legislation, which does not include the $5 billion that President Trump had demanded for his promised border wall. But the White House has not signaled whether the president will sign the bill. Joining us now to talk about this is Wisconsin Democratic Senator Tammy Baldwin, who sits on the Appropriations Committee, which is where these kinds of things get determined. Senator, I mean, I don't know if I was off that week because the president wanted to build this wall and Mexico was going to pay for it. And now there doesn't seem to be any solution other than the American people paying for it. Yesterday, Sarah Huckabee Sanders said, if we don't get it out of this continuing resolution, we'll get it out of the agencies. It's still the same money.
It sure is, and there's no question that President Trump has decided to go to American taxpayers in order to get $5 billion right now for his wall. And, you know, his campaign promise was that Mexico would pay for it, and that's not what he's going after. And there's just no appetite for that in the House of Representatives or the Senate, on a bipartisan basis, I might add. But the tragedy of this situation is that we have the remaining funding bills all ready to go. There's consensus around them. We could be providing certainty, not just kicking the can down the road to early February. And that's disappointing. I mean, at least we'll avert a shutdown over the holidays, but doing our job and having the president do his would be responsibly funding the government with the remaining passage of the remaining bills.
Senator, you and I have talked a lot about health care. We just saw a ruling in the state of Texas, a federal judge saying that it's unconstitutional. Obviously, we know from the last midterm elections it was the biggest issue for most American voters, and people are going to want to see something done rather than this death by 1,000 cuts of Obamacare. As you and I have discussed, if somebody has a better idea, they're welcome to bring it to the floor of the House of Representatives for actual debate. What do you see happening?
Well, I can tell you when the Senate defeated a bill that would have repealed the Affordable Care Act in summer of 2017, in the weeks following that, we were able in the Senate Health Committee to come together with bipartisan legislation to address some of the real issues that need addressing in the Affordable Care Act, like lowering costs and expanding access beyond where we've already achieved. But there's too many who want to play partisan politics with this and still try to repeal it, whether it's through legislation, through this court case you referenced, or by the administration taking action after action. And I even see it in my home state of Wisconsin, where the election was fought over the issue of health care. And I won re-election by a resounding margin, as did as did all of our Democrats at the top of the ticket in the state. We ran on health care. We ran on trying to withdraw Wisconsin from that lawsuit. We ran on lowering the cost of prescription drugs. We want to get to work on that, and we want to make sure that Republicans finally join us in this effort rather than continuing time after time in forum after forum to repeal health care, go back to the bad old days where people with a pre-existing health condition couldn't get coverage at all sometimes or at affordable prices.
Well, I hope this criminal justice reform bill might serve as a template for people working together. Speaking of Wisconsin, by the way, Senator, you did win, and lots of other people like you won, and a lot of Democrats won in at the state level. And then something weird is going on, where the outgoing Republicans in Wisconsin are trying to strip the incoming governor and legislature of certain powers. The outgoing governor has signed this legislation. It reduces early voting. It gives the legislator more control over certain things. What's happening?
Well, it's an enormous act of disrespect to the voters of Wisconsin. And as I just mentioned, our campaigns, all of us who won at the state level, were focused on issues around health care. And a lot of the emphasis on the part of the governor and our incoming attorney general were to withdraw Wisconsin from this suit that was trying to strike down the Affordable Care Act, to expand Medicaid, and to do things that would bring more affordable coverage for the people of Wisconsin. And one of the first things in their lame duck session that the Republicans in the legislature did, and now the governor has signed, is just the opposite, to try to restrict the powers of the incoming governor and incoming attorney general to withdraw from the lawsuit and to do other things that would bring more health care at an affordable rate to Wisconsin citizens. And on early voting, again, what disrespect to the voters. Time after time, this Republican-led legislature and the governor have restricted access to the polls in Wisconsin. And on the issue of early voting, just a few years ago, a federal court judge struck down an earlier effort to restrict early voting. They filed suit in the same court. I suspect it's going to happen again.
All right, Senator, thank you for joining me. Good to see you as always. Senator
Great
Tammy
to see
Baldwin.
you.